Welcome back, Truth Seeker. I am making this video with the hope it reaches the people who are planning on attending Game 5 of the World Series this evening, as well as Game 6 when it returns to Los Angeles from Houston. All of you who are spending your money on these games, you're giving your money to the most evil people in the world. As I explained in August, the Astros were a lock to make the World Series after the flooding of Houston, and the first visiting pitcher in Major League Baseball to play in Houston after the flooding of Harvey was Matt Harvey. And that game was played 52 days before the start of the World Series. In the language of gematria, flood equals 52. Houston flooded on a date with 52 numerology. Plus, in 2017, it was the 239th day of the year, which is the 52nd prime number. The language of gematria, in case you're new here, is a biblical practice. If you're not familiar with the Bible, the flood, a major narrative from the Bible. Yesterday's game, Game 4, was 62 days after the flooding of Houston, August 27th. And I just said how flood equals 52. In the language of Hebrew, which is the original language that the Bible was written in, the word for flood equals 62. And yesterday's game was 62 days after the flood. Look at the score, 6-2. In English, Torah equals 62. So does Elohim, the Jewish name for God from the Old Testament in Hebrew. And so does Garden of Eden, where the story begins, where mankind becomes sinners and it leads to God wiping out mankind with the flood. So what are the odds? 62 days after the flood, we get a 6-2 ball game. But that's not all. It gets worse. It gets worse. After the Tuna fires of Los Angeles, La Tuna fires, those fires began September 1st, and they were declared a state of emergency September 3rd. The same thing happened up here in Washington State on September 3rd. We had a lot of fires going too, also on the West Coast, also state of emergency September 3rd. But look at this. From the September 3rd state of emergency to yesterday's game was 55 days. And think about who was pitching for the Dodgers. A guy named Wood Burns. The word burn in gematria, just using the alphabetic order, is 55. And Los Angeles in the reduction method is also 55. So 55 days after the state of emergency, you got Wood on the mound. And it was also a date with 55 numerology yesterday. You see how nice that is? After the La Tuna fires, I said, okay, here we go. Because I was torn on who would make the World Series in the National League. I liked the Astros from the start of the season, just like I liked the Astros last year, too. Last year, I liked the Cubs to beat the Astros in the World Series in spring training. Once the Astros were eliminated, I said why it would be Cubs over Indians. This year in spring training, I said it was harder to choose this year. The narrative wasn't quite as clear. I liked the Astros again, but in the National League, I was looking at the Nationals, the Dodgers, and possibly the Cubs again. Well, after the La Tuna fires, I said it makes sense that they're going to put LA in there. This is the way this world works. The mad tyrants who control the world of rig sports, control the world of rig news, and they control incredible technology. They caused the flooding in Houston by the numbers. And in case you guys are new here, I mean, do some research. Since 1952, world militaries have been admitting to inducing flash flooding in parts of the world. They have the technology to create the chemistry in the skies to bring the rains. Look up the Houston headlines. They said it rained 52 inches there. Since 1952, it's been admitted that they've been able to flood by the numbers. Lynmouth flash flooding of the UK. Look it up. That town was flash flooded 52 years to the day later. Not coincidentally. We're living in a sick world. Which is why I'm doing this. You know, I don't really care about who wins these sports games. I care that you idiots stop going to the game and giving millions of dollars to morons, to psychopaths who are going to use that money to spread more tyranny over us, which is exactly what they do. So anyway, it was 55 days from the state of the emergency. Check this out. It was 57 days from the start of the fire. The La Tuna fires began September 1st. They became a state of emergency September 3rd. Look at this. 57 days. 57 days. Who was on the mound yesterday? Wood. And he wears number 57. Wood, number 57. You learn the language of gematria, you see how many players wear the jersey number that corresponds with their name. Wood, number 57, had a no-hitter going through 5 2/3 innings before his 84th pitch being hit out for a home run by Springer, number 4, in Game 4. Springer's on the cover of Sports Illustrated from 2014. George Orwell's birthday, June 25th. Author of 1984, who said all it took to rule over the people were films, sports, beer, and gambling. George Orwell's birthday. That Sports Illustrated cover, 2014, with an Astro on the cover, and it says your 2017 World Series champs. World Series has the gematria 57 like Wood, also like Scottish Rite, as in Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, who created American baseball, who created American football, who created American basketball. It's the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry running the show, the most Jewish branch. And by the way, Jews equals 57. But that pitcher, his full name, Wood, he goes by Alex Wood, but his full name's Robert Alexander Wood. Notice it's 93, just like La Tuna. And it was September 3rd, 9/3, the La Tuna fires were declared a state of emergency. You see this? 57 days from the start, you got Wood on the mound, burning wood. Alex Wood and 13 also have major overlap in gematria. LA equals 13. Game 1 was 1-3, 13 Ks by the start or the pitching team. Final batter was Altuve, 1 for 3. The closer's pitch was his 13th. These games scripted completely. The date that LA won, it was also a date with heavy 38 numerology. Talked about this number a lot last year in the Oakland warehouse fire. The Oakland warehouse fire purposefully set a riddle for the basketball season, for the NFL season. The day after that, the Raiders won with 38 points. Forget, there was a 38 riddle with the Warriors, but I was showing how it pointed to another NBA Finals with the Warriors and Cavs, and then they brought this story back up, the Oakland warehouse fire, as the NBA Finals were beginning last year. They were making arrests. It's because it's all bullshit, bogus news. It's all mocking. All of your news, again, is contrived and scripted, just like all of your sports games. That's why you got Scott Van Pelt on ESPN talking about how scripted it is. You have him putting up headlines like the perfect Hollywood ending for the Dodgers this year. I mean, the long noses run it all. You know they run Hollywood. You know they run your media. They run your sports leagues too. These people, they call us goyim, meaning lesser. Look up the Talmud. In the Talmud, it says there'll be 2,800 goyim slaves per Jew when the Messiah arrives. And that's from the verse Zohar 63. You know how JFK got killed in 63 and they just put out 2,800 documents? It's called a mocking. The JFK thing's where the term conspiracy theorist comes from. Another mocking to make it seem like conspiracy isn't a real thing, when conspiracy is what runs the show. For all you baseball fans, instead of wasting your money at these World Series games, stay home and watch the Ken Burns baseball documentary tonight. One of the first episodes, it explains that when professional baseball started, every game was a conspiracy. Every game was rigged and scripted to draw fan interest and excitement and create storylines and narratives. Do you think anything's changed? Everything is in front of everyone's face in this society and people can't catch on. That's what's so pathetic. It's just such a mocking. And it's every single game. And, the Jews, in the Talmud, it says that a goyim is just a very stupid thing. They don't even consider us, we're not even human. We're considered a type of animal, a beast, because we're too dumb to be considered human. And the Talmud explains that a human is something of God, and a goyim is not of God. Goyim is just too pathetic. As sick as it all is, what's written in the Talmud, in a way, it seems kind of true, You got to be really dumb to not catch on to what's going on. 9/11? How many of you haven't caught on to 9/11? You still think 9/11 was done by a man in a cave? Got news for you. Tisha B'Av equals 911. You know what that is? That's remember the destruction of the Jewish temples, the 2 Jewish temples, the 2 towers on 911. So anyway, today's game in Houston starts at 5:20. They both got their aces going. Dallas versus Clayton Kershaw. Dallas equals 113. CK is 3. C is 3. K is 11. Remember, Kershaw, K had 11 Ks in the first game. K is the 11th letter. CK 311. 113 in reverse. Dallas 113. It's the 113th World Series. Big game tonight. The 5:20 start. I think that is in favor of Texas, which had the flooding by the numbers. I saw it last night in Game 4. First hit batsman of the World Series on the 52nd pitch. Definitely not coincidental. It's all scripted this way. What I'm looking at, though, is with the whole fire narrative, because it's water in Houston versus fire in LA. You got the record heat Game 1, 103 degrees. That's like 1-3. Another 13. Game finished 1-3. But the word fire also has gematria of 29, and La Tuna also has gematria of 39. So that's interesting. Today has 22 numerology, the master builder number, 22. If you write out master builder as a word, it sums to 147, like Freemason, like conspiracy, like World Series, like Houston Astros, who've never won it. Fire, flooded, drown, all words with 29 gematria. Kershaw and Keuchel. They call him Keuchel. A Keuchel is a circle. I don't really think this guy's name is meant to be pronounced Keuchel. I think it's all part of the sick joke. Anyway, they're both 29 years old. How fitting. Interesting about Clayton Edward Kershaw, he has this full name gematria of 112. Houston equals 112. If Houston wins the World Series, it'll be their 112th win of the season. You see? We'll see what Kershaw does tonight. Today, 58 days from the start of the fire. Freemasonry 58, Secret Society 58. All these players born and bred to be. Farmed to be. Clayton has the gematria of 99 when you write out 1399. Game 1 they won 1-3. LA has the gematria of 13 and 41. 41's the 13th prime. It's in his name Kershaw as well. Perfect name to be a Dodger. Kershaw 104. Dodgers had 104 wins this year. Jerusalem equals 104. The date of establishment for this nation. Date with 104 numerology. Twin Towers equals 104. They made the One World Trade Center 104 stories. Again, Jerusalem equals 104, where the two temples were destroyed. Tisha B'Av 911. So here's Dallas. Today's date has 49 numerology. 113th World Series. His last name also equals 29 in addition to being 29 years old. I wrote yesterday that I expect this series to likely go to Game 7 because of this number right here, 34. Element equals 34. It's fire versus water. Harvey equals 34. I mean, you can see here, Keuchel or Keuchel, the way they call it, 34. I did make an observation, though. If I'm wrong about Houston winning this World Series, and let's say LA wins tonight, if LA does close out 4-2, I noticed that Los Angeles Dodgers equals 181, which is the 42nd prime. But based on everything I've seen, I still like the Astros to win this World Series. That 2014 SI cover. Also, the day Matt Harvey pitched in Houston, Fox News ran a story of a woman saying she felt like she won the World Series because her house wasn't destroyed in Houston. And I thought, what a stupid thing to say. She feels like she didn't win the World Series. Or, I mean, she feels like she won the World Series because her house wasn't destroyed. Who would say that? That was the same day Matt Harvey was pitching in Houston, 52 days before the start of the World Series. So anyway, we'll see what happens. It doesn't really matter who wins. The point to take away is just how obviously scripted all of this is. And I've been explaining this since August and September. And now things just continue to unfold. I explained why in Game 2 the Astros would definitely win. It was all about water. That was the day leaving 67 days left in the year. Water equals 67. The final score was 6-7. I talked about how it was the 25th. The word flood equals 25. The closer on his 25th pitch closed out the game. It's just undeniable what's going on.